We saw a really bad performance overall from the Chicago Bears. We are curious, and we in our last segment we were going through this. What are you seeing with the quarterback? Is it fair to say that there's been regression, or has it just been really good game planning from the last two opponents?
I don't know if I use the word regression. I think, you're seeing a lot of kind of the same things that we've seen throughout the year. I think Caleb has, made some progression as the year's gone along. But I also think if you look at the last couple games, I don't know. I wouldn't put a whole bunch of it on Caleb myself. I don't think there's been a lot of great opportunities for him. Some of the concepts haven't really been easy for him. You guys hear me talk about all the time the pure progression stuff, where it takes time to get through an entire progression. And so sometimes when he's trying to get through his progression, there's not the protection and the ability to work through some of those things. So it slows down the process. I do think there's some issues for me personally, just with his comfort level in the pocket and throwing the football, that sometimes I think he gets real stiff in the pocket, and he misses some throws, or I shouldn't even say missing them because they're not like easy throws, but they don't come out exactly like I would want them to come out. And I think a lot of that is because he gets kind of stuck in the pocket at times. But just in terms of playing and trying to progress and trying to work through his reads, I don't think these last couple games have really been on him. I don't think yesterday's game was on him a lot, where I said, oh man, he missed a bunch of different throws or different reads in the game. I don't think there was a lot available for him for the most part. And so that's kind of how I assess the quarterback position coming off yesterday's game. I know a lot of people want to point there, and they didn't score a lot of points and some of that stuff. But I just didn't really think there was a lot of, really open, easy opportunities for him.
So if you're watching the tape and you don't see a lot of open and easy opportunities, is that the scheme, or do the patterns and the routes that the receivers are running not look like they fit the kind of time Caleb is getting? What are you seeing schematically, Kurt?
Yeah, I mean, and again, I know where you guys are going, but let me just say this. I see it all over the league. And so it's just things to me that I don't personally like. They don't make a lot of sense to me. And they don't allow a quarterback to speed up and to be able to assess things a little bit more pre-snap or a little bit more right on the snap and get through reads or give them more options than just going through this progression. And so it frustrates me, because there are a lot of concepts that I see quarterbacks reading that I would never read against the coverage that they're seeing. And that's, that lends itself to this pure progression, is we're going to start over here. We're going to read this kind of no matter what. And I know coaches tell me all the time, well, we have things that you can go through to eliminate stuff early, but I just don't see a lot of quarterbacks doing that. And that's not, just a Caleb Williams. I've seen it numerous times with Kirk Cousins, who's been in the league for, more than 10 years. And he's playing in, a lot of pure progression type stuff. And I see him get caught, or I see him going through things too fast to try to get to the other side. And he's a guy that sees the field really well and has in the past. So this is something that I see all over the league. And it frustrates me, because I just know if you're telling a, quarterback to do that, they're going to do that. And if you're telling me to do that, I'm going to eliminate that whole side, and I'm going somewhere else where I know I've got a better option to complete the football without wasting that time, because you guys see it, right? I mean, he's not having a lot of time to throw the football. So if you're having to work to your number three to throw the football, as opposed to starting over kind of by your number three, or starting on another side that gives you a better option to get the ball out quick, it's just way more advantageous. But you sometimes step back and you go, okay, why is everybody doing this? And what are the reasons behind, so much more pure progression coming into the league? And that's the question that I continue to ask. And so is it a coaching thing where, coaches just kind of think, well, if I just throw this play out there, then I can call it no matter what against whatever coverage. and it doesn't necessarily fall back on me to have to call the perfect play against a coverage. It also gives me or gives us the ability to go, okay, different guys can be open on this play. And so when you coach a guy through that, you can kind of say, oh, well, you should have got past 1 and 2 and got to 3. See how he's open here. But to me, that doesn't make sense unless you can tell me why I'm getting past 1 and 2 that quickly to get to number 3. Like, oh, because of this defense, go to number 3. That makes sense to me. But if you're telling me to read 1 and 2, and there's no definitive reason why I'm moving to 3 until I've seen if 1 and 2 are open, it's hard for me to have to listen to somebody coach and say, well, you should have got back to 3 or 4 because they're open on this play, but they're not connected, so to speak, in that. Is it because of the players not really understanding or being able to grasp different concepts and why I wouldn't want to read to this side or what I'm looking for after the snap? And can they not do some of that stuff because they've never really been taught, and the NFL coaches don't have a chance to teach that? So you have to deal with, these players that are coming straight from college. And so I don't really know why. I've broken it down on my website or my YouTube page a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. And you can see in those breakdowns the problem with it. Now, it doesn't mean some of these plays aren't good or some of these plays don't put a person in conflict at times. But the way they're designed are not designed solely to put a guy in conflict. And that, to me, doesn't calculate in my mind on why we think that's going to continually be successful if we're not forcing the defense to have to move, to cover a guy, to put them in conflict between, 2 different guys. And then the fact that I can't read 2 guys at one time. So talk about this makes sense to you guys, right? If I've got a guy that's those 2 guys at the exact same time because I'm reading the defender, and the defender goes deep, then I throw the underneath one at the same time I would throw the deep one if the defender grabbed the short one. And so I'm technically able to read 2 different players at one time from my perspective. And so 1 and 2 technically would be 1 and 1. And then number 3 would be 2. So I'm playing the game so much faster than I could play it, running through this true pure progression stuff.
Hey, Kurt, when you say that he looks stiff in the pocket, tell us more about that, and what kind of mistakes does that lead to when you do that?
Yeah. Well, throwing the football, if you talk to people that really kind of understand the process, they're always going to tell you that you throw the ball, from the ground up. That, really, to me, like if you guys are golfers, us big guys that play football always used to think that when we would get on a golf course, we could just go out there and we'd drive the ball 300 yards without even thinking about it because we're big, strong guys. And what we do is we grab the club really hard and we swing it really fast, and we think that's what's going to create the distance. And then you watch these 165-pound golfers get up there and hit at 350 every time, and you're like, how is this possible? I mean, and what you realize is they create the torque and the power with their body, and all they're really doing is guiding the club. They're not swinging the club really hard. They're letting their power of their body take their arm where it wants to go. Throwing a football is very much the same way, as we want to guide and direct our power with our feet and with our body. So our arm simply has to follow the process and kind of finish with our arm, but not throw it with our arm. So I say all of that to when you get stiff in the pocket or when you get stuck in the pocket. And what I mean by that is you'll see some quarterbacks, and it happens to Caleb sometimes, where he gets to the top of his drop and he almost like comes to a stop. And you always want to kind of be in motion so, you can create that torque and that power. Tom Brady was one of those guys that would come to a stop, and he was great at it. So you don't argue with it, but it's not necessarily how you teach it. Is you want that fluidity. Although you want your power in the ground, you want that fluidity and kind of be in a position to explode moving forward. So when you get stuck in the ground, what happens is you don't have that same torque and movement with your body. And so your arm takes over at times. And so you're making throws with your arm. And so just imagine if I've got to make a 25-yard throw, and if I can create that power with my legs and my core, then I can change the trajectory of the ball, and it can be firm but soft. I can get it up and down, put it up in the air so it goes over a linebacker and all that stuff, because I'm creating the power not with my arm but with my legs. When you have to create that power with your arm, so I've got to throw it hard enough that it can get 25 yards with my arm, what happens is the ball comes out a lot flatter, right? It comes out a lot more firm. And so if you guys watch all the games with Caleb, you'll see a number of his balls how they just kind of shoot over and past the receiver, right? They stay on a more of a straight line, and he'll miss over the top because he's got to put more velocity on the football, as opposed to, putting the ball up in the air and kind of getting the turnover and drop on his receivers. And a lot of times that comes because he's throwing more and creating more of that power with his arm than his legs. And so that's what happens when you get stiff and stuck in the pocket, is you're not creating that torque with your body, and you have to create more with your arm. And that leads to, for me, inaccuracies, or, forces you to have to throw the ball harder. And when you throw the ball harder, it's either you're going to be accurate or you're not. When I throw the ball and have a little touch where it allows my receiver to adjust to it, right, to change his course, to slow down a little bit, to speed up a little bit, I'm going to have a better, completion percentage and, quote unquote, be more accurate, because I give my receivers opportunities to adjust, as opposed to throwing it hard and flat where it's either I'm perfect, or if I miss by a foot, we miss, because there's no ability for my guy to adjust. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. How
Okay.
would you assess the Bears' effort in yesterday's game?
It wasn't something, I'm always, when I'm watching the tape, I'm obviously watching more XOs and details like that and quarterback driven. And then I try to pick up on other things like that. So, like, if I'm watching the game and then I notice numerous times, like, hey, this guy's jogging or this guy's not giving effort, I didn't notice that as being a thing. I think the biggest thing is they couldn't win the battle up front on either side of the ball. And, in this, I shouldn't say in this day and age, in every day and age playing football, if you can't win the battle up front, it's going to be a struggle. And they had issues protection-wise, offensively, obviously defensively. Nobody was winning up front. So, Arizona was able to get up on their linebackers, and they were getting gashed, over and over again in the run game. I mean, Arizona did very little in the pass game all day long, but, the linebackers couldn't get free, and they couldn't win and create any negative plays defensively. And so I didn't look at it as if it was an effort thing, but more of an execution thing, or more of a, winning those one-on-one battle type things. And they just didn't do it yesterday.
Kurt, Caleb Williams, after the safety that made it 29-9, went back out there with 7.5 minutes to go for a drive, down 20, and 9 plays, 34 yards, turned it over on downs. And then he went back out there again with 2:15 left in the game, and the Bears on their own 19. Dropped back to pass a few times, injured his ankle on the second to last play, was out there up until the final whistle. It made us crazy. How do you feel about a rookie starter out there down 20 with less than 3 minutes to go?
I don't mind it one bit. Like, there's always two philosophies when you do this. Is that one philosophy is we are going to go down swinging. And that was the philosophy that I always wanted to have. Like, as long as we're going to try to play this game, I want to be out there. Don't pull me out. Don't put somebody else in if we're going to try to win this game. If you're going to go and just hand the football off every snap, then go ahead and put somebody else in. Like, if we're giving up and saying, game over, we're done, put somebody else in. Because I don't want to be out there competing or not competing or what. Like, if I'm between the lines, let's compete. And if that means I throw my 5th interception, and does that mean, I get hit more or get injured or whatever, or whatever that is, if we're going to compete, I want to be out there. If we're done and you've decided we're done for this game and we're just going to pack it in and show up next week, then let me know and you can pull me out, and then you better just hand the football off, right? Like, if that's the case, then just hand it off and let's go into next week. But that's my philosophy. When I played, I wanted to go down swinging. It's like another thing. You'll see a lot of quarterbacks, they get in those situations and they know they're down 20 points. So they just start throwing checkdowns like, hey, we're not going to win. So let me just throw checkdowns to the back every time. And I hated that as well. Like if we're playing, I'm swinging. Like I'm going for the deep throws. I'm going to try to hold the football and make the big play and see if we can get a chance to some crazy thing to happen and win this game. I'm not going in to throw checkdowns. I'm going to play the game the same way I would play the game, when we're up 10, when we're down 20, when the game's just starting, when the game's at the end. So I don't buy into that theory unless, you've decided. And so, if you guys, in the stands want to decide when it's time to just quit and pull the guys out, okay, well then don't complain when there's a time when at the end of the game, we're not trying or we're not working or like that just doesn't make sense to me. If I'm on the field, I want to try to win. And even if we can't win, I want to try to win, right? Even if, we're down 20 with 2 minutes to go and it's just not, hey, if I'm out there, let's go score a touchdown. I mean, let's go make plays. Let's go build for next, whatever it is. It's about competing. And so I hate, that idea because, if we want to talk about it on one side, then basically what you're saying is let's give up. Hey, Bears, you should have just given up yesterday. That's a hard thing to tell a competitor is that it's time to give up. And so that to me is the only delineation between the two is, and sometimes you do like I understand if you're down 20, you don't think you're going to win. I'm okay if you give up, from this perspective of, hey, we didn't have it today. Let's line up for next week, but then play that way. Like, go out there and hand it off and punt it back to them and use the clock every second of the clock and get out of here. But don't put somebody else in and try to win and throw the football. And like, if that's the case, I want to be in there. Like, it's my job, my team. Let me be out there battling with my guys if we're going to keep battling.
Kurt, I know that you're more about the tape than you are about feelings, for example, when it comes to judging football. But for you, is there any worry that the Bears have allowed themselves in the last two games to maybe lose the same game twice because of everything that's went on at the end of the Washington game?
I think you're always concerned about that. I think anytime you give a game away that you should have won, you have to, I know that we had a great coach, Frank Gans, back in the day with the Rams that always used to say one snap and clear. That's how you have to play this game. If you're a quarterback and you throw an interception, it's one snap and clear. You got to let it go. You can't let that bother you for the next throw, or vice versa. You throw a great throw or a great touchdown, and on a certain play, when you come back and get that play again, you don't just throw that same throw again. You have to read it out. You have to forget about what's happened. And it's the same in a season. Is that you get beat down in one game, you got to let that go and show up for the next game, or you win by 50, you got to let that go and show up for the next game. And so, but I think you always worry about that. It's especially a game like this that everybody was talking about. And, a lot of people are going, oh my gosh, can you imagine what that game might mean down the stretch? And could that be the game that cost them the playoffs? Or like when you hear that stuff day after day and you're talking about it day after day, yeah, you're concerned that starts to wear on guys and guys start thinking about that and wondering, oh, that, dumb mistake that we made, the one that cost us. And are you pointing fingers at guys? You're pointing fingers at your defense or your coach because of, some things that you say, wish we would have done that differently. So I think that is always a concern when you have moments like that. But that's what leadership is all about. It's about getting in there and saying, hey, whether that one was on me or that was my mistake or hey, we let one get away, but everything is still in front of us. It's time to close that door. And your leaders have to, recognize that stuff. They got to hear people talking. They got to shut down when different comments are made and say, that's over. It's done. We are on, like Bill Belichick back in the day. The funny, like, we're on to Cincinnati. We're on, but that was the point. We just got blown out in this game and it was awful. And that wasn't us. And it put us in a horrible spot, but it's over. It's done. We're on to Cincinnati and we got to take care of the next one. So I think it's always a concern, and it's always what leadership is all about. And you really got to hope that yesterday wasn't, because of last week, because once that ball starts rolling downhill, it just picks up momentum, one game after another game. And now you're going, oh, we performed like that. And now we lost the one before. And now, we're 2 games back and all that stuff. And now you're starting to go in the wrong direction, and you're not prepared to be successful moving forward.
Kurt, thank you so much. We always appreciate the point of view of you watching all of this stuff, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, guys. Take care.
So there's Kurt Warner with his belief that if you go down fighting with everybody. Let's talk about that.
He kind of came around, though.
I heard it as well.